Hello friends and fans, welcome back to John HG Gaming, and in this episode I'm going to showcase my pure NATO deck. It is of course a deck that I've made by combining all of the available units to the NATO nations. So let me showcase to you what I have for logistics. It is a pretty standard choice in my logistics section. An FOB, a couple of Jupiters to resupply my front line, but I've chosen the South 10 as my main CV. It is of course an armored CV. However, I will say that for the price point of 140 deployment points, you could pretty much pick any other choice and it should give you about the same kind of advantage. Alright, I've chosen the South 10 because I tend to favor the British units a little more. It is my personal bias, so that's why I chose the South 10. You could of course pick whatever bias you have, whatever that you like, and it's not going to be too much more expensive, I think. Alright, so let me showcase to you what I have for the infantry. I brought in some of these Stormers over here because I tend to find that the Scandinavian infantry tend to work pretty well for me. The Stormers are pretty multi-purpose, and as a result, I like them a lot. I like to have them under cover and use them to push, also defend certain choke points. And I like to support them with some ATGM units. And that's the reason why I chose to bring in the ATGM Milans. These ATGM Milans are the French units that are very powerful. They have an AP power of 24, so that's amazing. I also brought in some of these German Yak Commandos, and these guys are pretty decent as well. So both of them should be able to support the Stormers fairly well. However, something that you might have noticed is that I did not bring in any infantry based AA this time round. So I gotta bring in more AA in my support section. I've chosen to bring in the American Chaparrals. These guys are infrared based, which means that they will not be targeted by sea aircraft. And there is an additional advantage, which is they cost only 20 deployment points. So I can feel free to bring in a large number of these Chaparrals. I've chosen to support these Chaparrals using Marder Roland 2s. These guys are a unit that I favor a lot in Wargame European Escalation. So I'm gonna bring them in because I'm very familiar with these guys. So that is a personal choice. For this particular price point, I'm sure you could find other alternatives which will also work very well. So this is up to you. But do try and pick a slightly better and more expensive AA unit to support these Chaparrals over here. Alright, I brought in a Lars too. This is an artillery kind of unit, and they have fairly long range and pretty strong HE power of 10. So that should work out fairly well. So my support deck is pretty strong, I feel. Very good mix of AA, of cheap AA, and an elite Marder Roland 2, as well as a Lars to take advantage of any light infantry or light vehicles that are left out in the open and unprotected. So that's what I'm gonna do. Now moving on to my tank selection. As you can see, I tend to favor a very strong armor kind of tanks, and that's pretty evident by my Swedish choice. Front armor of 10. These Chieftains have a front armor of 14, and the Abrams have a front armor of 17. What I intend to do is get my Chieftains and the Swedish tanks to draw the main bulk of the fire and absorb the main bulk of the fire, while I micro my Abrams and use the ATGM vehicles that I've chosen over here to be my main punching force. That is something that I tend to do in my deck choices. I've chosen to bring in the Jaguar 2s from the Germans, and these guys are very good in terms of the AP power, highly accurate, and I really like the French AMX. I've seen them perform very well in multiplayer campaigns, high AP power as well as very good rate of fire. So that's why I picked these three, and I do like my choices very much. Now to the Recon, I bring in a very standard kind of infantry based Recon as well as a ground based Recon. You could of course bring in the helicopter Recon, but if you do bring in helicopter Recon, try not to pick the ones that are cheap. Try and pick the most elite and perhaps the most expensive one that is available to you, because the most elite ones are the ones with very good optics, and when I say very good optics, I actually mean exceptional optics. Do not save your money on helicopter recon, because if you are using helicopter recon with exceptional optics, they should in most cases stay out of range of enemy AA and yet give you very good vision. So that is a plus point, a huge plus point in fact, that you can use to your advantage. But in my deck, I've decided to go for the cheaper ones, the ones that are less likely to be shot down by AA. So it depends on play style. I favor a ground-based attack kind of strategy a little more. So that's what I'm gonna go with. Now moving on to the helicopters, I chose to bring in the Lynx AH-1 TOWs. So these guys are the British helicopters. So as you can see, I tend to favor the British units a lot more over here. And the Lynx helicopters over here, they have pretty good AP power, highly accurate, and they have a long range on ground. So I'm gonna use these guys to support my front line and try and take out as many T-80s or as many Abrams that my opponents throw at me. And I think these Lynx should be able to perform very well in multiplayer games. Now moving on to the planes, I have chosen the American planes of course, and a German plane. The Alpha Jet A is a plane that is classified as a bomber, so it has two 450 kg rounds, so it should perform fairly well. And at 50 deployment points, I consider it fairly cheap. Their downside is of course the lack of ECM as well as stealth. So the lack of countermeasures would mean that these guys will be shot down fairly easily. However, at $50 a piece, I think it is pretty fine. I will hope that these guys survive after a bombing run, but if they do not, it is nothing too much to cry over, so I'm pretty okay with that. I've chosen to bring in some of these Tomcats. These guys have an incredible range against other aircraft, 11,900 meters, that's pretty incredible. And the Raven over here is my seed aircraft to take out ground-based radar AA. So this will make up my plane section, my plane choices, and I'm pretty happy with it. Some bombers, some seed aircraft, some anti-aircraft aircraft, so it should be pretty good all around. So here we are. These are my choices for the pure NATO deck that I've made. Something that I've been thinking about would be the question of whether I should have brought in some helicopter based recon, and I think I might tweak my deck eventually in the future to bring a helicopter recon if I find that my ground based recon are insufficient. However, the reason that I have not included the helicopter recon in this particular deck is because I'm a bit reluctant to give up any other unit over here. I think these other guys are pretty necessary, so I'm not too sure what I'm going to give up. All of them make up a pretty strong ground based kind of force. My strategy basically is a ground based kind of push, so that's what I'm going to go with. So hopefully this deck works out. I'm definitely going to give this deck a try and let you guys see how it works out in the following multiplayer games. So do let me know what you think about it. Alright, so I'll see you guys in the next episode where I'll try out this deck. Signing off.